What's up guys, it's Connor here with the Disciples, and today we're here with Alex Moffatt. And what did you just do today?
I made top 32 at the European Championships with Pendulum Magicians.
That's amazing, bro. Anything you want to say before we get onto the deck profile?
Tournament was really good for me. I went X2 in Swiss, so I finished 17th before top cut. I won top 64 but then lost in top 32, but I was very happy with how far I got.
Brilliant. Okay, let's go onto the deck profile.
Cool, so I was playing Pendulum Magicians, which is my favourite deck. I play it a lot, in case you haven't really noticed. So going through the build then, so the extenders were the free chronograph with the time gazer, the free Cerberus with the 2 jackal, and then the free abyss actors. You want to maximise on all the good extenders there are. The only other possible really kind of extender is the speedroid, and that's terrible for going second. So basically you just want to always be able to special summon a pendulum monster so you can make him electromite before pendulum summon, going first and second. And then you have this card going second is insane. Against the Skuldred, I think I buffed up to about like 5,800, and that's like swinging for 6k with one card. It's crazy. And then for the Magicians, we played quite a large engine. So we have 3 Wisdom Eye, 3 Oath, 2 Poison, 3 Harmonizing, 2 Black Fang, and then 1 Janky.
Hi, Janky.
Janky, he always comes in clutch. The free Oath is a bit different from normal, but it's actually one of the best ones, since you always pretty much, unless you always have access to Harmonizing, that's what you're going to be sending off Electromite most of the times these days. So you want to be able to add it back without having to resolve Electromite's effect. And it's also just really good if Electromite does get like Ghost Ogred or something like that, so you can rely on adding it back to hand regardless of the outcome of the Electromite. And the only other difference is normally a lot of people are cutting down to 1 Black Fang, 1 Purple Poison, but especially with Desires in the deck, I would never want to banish either of these. I'd always want to have a copy in my deck, and Black Fang is your go-to high scale, and this card is insane for pushing for damage and popping cards, and damage step is crazy. I'd never want to run less than 2 of either of them. And then this card itself is mainly for summoning the level 7 of Harmonizing, but at the same time it's really good to open because it's a 2/5 body, which is really hard for Trickstar to deal with. And it also negates the Candina if you want to do that as well.
Do you know how many monsters you play altogether?
I think it is 32 monsters and 8 spells. So getting on to the last of the monsters, they're all pendulum monsters. We didn't play any hand traps. If you're playing a pendulum deck, you don't want to be playing hand traps. You want to be playing with 5 pendulum cards going first and 6 pendulum cards going second. Drawing like an Ash or whatever off the Electromite draw effect is terrible. Like, you always want to draw another pendulum card to extend your plays. So onto pendulum cards. We played the 3 Dark Worms and 2 Gates for the Dark Worm engine. It's fairly standard. You always want to have 2 of these, especially with Desires. Resolving 2 is really good in the grind game, especially if you get this into grave of like a rank 4 or something. And the last pendulum card is the 1 Rescue Hamster. This is an insane amount of utility it provides your Electromite sends. The normal summon effect is good, although not as good anymore because you're playing only 1 of them compared to 3 before. So you are summoning the 2 of the Magicians that or the Abyss Actor or Dark One that you're copying, as opposed to the 2 Rescue Hamsters to get them out of the deck. But the scale effect is still ridiculous. Most of the time I'm adding back like 2 Wisdom Eye or 2 Chronograph, and adding the 2 Chronograph and being able to trigger them is like 4k damage, 4k damage on board, which is crazy. Then the spells, so 3 Desires, always back and forth between 2 and 3 with this, but at the moment I think there's just probably not enough good pendulum cards to play to get to anywhere near 40 cards, so you just want to max out on cards that will help you draw the good ones. And then, so 2 Dragon Shrine, 1 Foolish for sending the Dark Worm is probably the best card to open. It's the turbo card and it's a +1. And then lastly we have 1 Pendulum Call and 1 Stargraph. So this card is crazy with the Sky Striker cards because they can't target any of your Kais or any of your spellcasters, so Naritos, Jackals, any of the Magicians when they're just on the board, so they can be really troublesome to get over. And it's crazy in the grind game as well because if you can trigger it turn 1, hopefully, unless your hand is terrible, it's any Magician, so Harmonizing, Wisdom Eye most of the time. And then they have to deal with it next turn, otherwise you're going to be plussing and plussing and plussing. But it's not a card that you ever want to see multiples of, although still being insane, which is it's unfortunate we can't really run it more than 1. It's not really justified. And kind of a similar thing with Pendulum Call. It's a bit weird at 1, but at the same time it is really good to draw, but Ash is obviously a thing at the moment, so you have to have a lot of balls sometimes to do this as your first move. But at the same time, it's the best card to play around draw, since you're adding like 2 amazing cards. Your opponent's taking a card out their hand for free, so you just it's crazy, the interaction with draw. The same with Desires and all of these cards really. We built the deck to not lose to draw. So we normally, the way I play it out is you'd always want to try and activate your good draw cards, so like a Pot Desires or a Call first. So then after they draw, you'd be ahead with the amount of either card advantage or good cards that you have in your hand at the time.
How many cards is that in main deck? So
40 card main deck. Like we said, there wasn't enough good Pendulum cards, so we had to add on like random ones like 1 Call and the third Desires. So life's hard with Astrograph. Extra deck, 3 Electromite, fairly standard again. I'd never want to play 2, the third one always comes up. And then the other 2 links is 1 on the clock and then 1 Zephyr Mellotron. Mellotron again, fairly standard, just for summoning your Vortex and just linking the Electromite in the absolute away. And then this one here, 2 reasons we play this one. One is because it's insane for pushing for damage, especially like if you lose your Electromite off cherries or something like that. And then the second reason is when we'd like making the going first board, so the 3 negates, which I'll show shortly. You'd make 2 Electromite before Pendulum Summon. You'd link these 2 for the Zephyr, and then you want to summon 2 7s so you can make the absolute play. So you have your 2 7s here. You want to link away the absolute and this for something. So this is like the best viable option really. And then onto the rank 4s. So we play the Dweller, the Karen Gorgon, Trapeze, and the Tornado. So these are the general going first plays against the most decks. So Dweller for Goki, and then Karen Gorgon for any Sky Striker variant. Dweller is obviously insane against Goki, it's really hard for them to plus. And then Karen Gorgon is crazy at the moment because a lot of people still don't realise that the effect is not once per turn. So the best example of this I had was when I had this and something else, and my opponent tried to afterburner this. I changed it, targeting their monster. They chained with Anchor. I chained this again, targeting their monster. So not only did they lose 2 cards, they also lost the monster in their zone. So that was crazy.
Full value. Full
value right there. And then Tornado is, again, very standard. It's still really good against Trickstar. And then Trapeze is just a OTK facilitator.
Isn't there like a combo you can do with Tornado that brings back?
Yeah, there's a cheeky little combo. Shoutouts to Alfie Morton for showing us this.
Cosmic Hero.
Cosmic Hero. If you open like 2 4s and 2 7s, so you make the absolute play saying you've summoned out the Janky, and you end up with a Black Fang on scale. So you have the Janky in the graveyard, a Black Fang on scale, and a Tornado. If you want to use the Tornado as a negate, you can pop the Black Fang to summon back the Janky to then negate a light monster. So it is an option. It just gives you more options, really. But yeah, about these 2, when I'm going first, generally I'd always try and make one of these. Obviously, you're not always going to know what your opponent's playing. So sometimes you might have to take the guess. It might go right, it might go wrong. But the best example of this was in Top 64. I expected a lot of Goki in Top 64. I played someone, I didn't know who they were. And I think I had like 2 Jackals and an option to make a rank 4. Because my Electrum got Veiled, so I couldn't send the right cards. So I could only make a rank 4, and 2 Jackals in rank 4 are still really good. But I made this blindly, and then the first thing he does is a normal summon Rhino, and I was like, yes, that was the correct choice.
So he's playing Burning Abyss.
So he's playing Burning Abyss. And I made the blind with that.
And
he was Italian.
Oh, broken. In the Swiss rounds, which would you say you made more throughout the Swiss?
A lot of the time, to be honest, I probably won about 3 die rolls in Swiss, and I think one of them ended up with me just passing with nothing. So I think it was, I'll say 1 of each. I'd say going first. But I'm happy going second with this deck as long as it's not Goki. I'm going second against, which did happen once, but he messed up the combo, so I managed to OTK him next time. And then the last Xyz, Naruto. Obviously, again, really good going first. Also, really good going second because it will, if you have 2 6s and 2 4s and you're playing against Trickstar, they have like 1 set, for instance. It's probably a scapegoat if they haven't used it by now. This forces them to either activate it, or with your 2 6s you overlay to this and then they can't activate it. So they do activate it. With your 2 4s then you can hopefully just summon this and then just blow all the tokens up and, you know, just kill them. And then the other exes is obviously just for the best negate you have in the deck. And then so synchros, this one again is just crazy for damage. Although it's not as, I always find myself never having the dark tuner, so I can never make it properly. But it's quite hard to make a lot of the time. Ignister is generally a bit more generic because you don't need the non-dark tuner, because you really only because the deck now with only 2 Black Fang, 2 Pebble Poison, you're not always going to have them. And then the last one is the Omega. Omega is actually like really good right now. You wouldn't think it is as good as it is. It's a 2A body for the Trickstars to deal with, and some hands are kind of a bit awkward, so you can only make, you have your Harmonizing, you have a note like an Oath Dragon scale, you kind of want to plus for next turn, so you sync it with the Harmonizing, add the Harmonizing back to hand with Oath rather than send it to the graveyard. That just kind of gives you more opponents next turn.
Brilliant.
And onto side deck. So we have for the Trickstar Sky Striker matchup, we have the 3 Denkos and the 3 Reboots. Both of these, most of the time, if you draw one of them, is kind of GG versus Trickstar Sky Striker. Just a note, post game 1, so game 2 and 3 against that deck, and generally all decks apart from Goki are always bind second, since the best thing this deck can do is OTK really easily through hand traps. The only hard part is the back row, which is what these deal with. So as we can shut down the back row, we can play for hand traps most of the time and kill them.
Was there a time in Swiss when you denkoed anyone for a lot?
Yeah, I denkoed quite a lot. A couple of times I denkoed, they were dead back row anyway, but it gave me the confidence to kill them without, you know, if you see the 2 back rows, sometimes you're not going to make the optimal K unless you're really brave. So yeah, and then also for these are for Trickstar Sky Striker. For pure Sky Striker, we had the Kaijus and the Denkos. They pretty much do the same thing against pure Sky Striker, because they shut down all the. This is the 3rd Kamungus.
Okay.
Shout out to Leon for letting me borrow it, even though I have one at home somewhere. So it would just shut down all the back row and deal with, like we said, all the problems that the deck can face, sometimes going second. And then for the Goki matchup, we have the 3 Kaijus and then the 3 Sit. There's again 3 thirds. Shout out to Leon again. They do pretty much the same thing. The Kaijus against the Goki deck, usually they'll end with the 2 mermaids and then 4 monsters in the main zone. So you have room to Kaiju them, unless they do have the extended to have the 5th monster, then you're kind of screwed if you open the Kaiju. If you Kaiju the mermaid above the Trigate, you deal with all the interruptions, so you basically just look to make an Ignister, spin away the Nightmare that you can't deal with, and then either clear their board or do enough damage. And generally their follow-up plays aren't very good, because they've used literally all their extra deck. But this should actually be a Raging Kaiju, the dark one, which is like 2/7 or 2/8 attack, because of the Neospatian Aqua Dolphin, because Fire was 2/5, so if they do summon it while they have Firewall, they can knock this out of the hand, but they couldn't knock out the Dark Kaiju. But that didn't come up for me, but it's just a extra little, I think, defensive maneuver against the Goki deck. And yeah, Swim Mode pretty much does the same thing, but a bit better. And the only thing to note as well is, if you do get it bleed, obviously you can't use the Kaijus, but we do have a lot of level 6s, so the 2 Jackals, the 2 Oath, like the Pendulum Call, and then the Cerebuses to search the Jackal, for instance, to get to those level 6s. And then lastly, we do also have the 2 Infinites for the Goki deck. We didn't play any hand traps. I guess this is the hand trap, but it's not a hand trap that loses to Call by the Grave or the Dolphin, so it's just another kind of safety net against the Goki deck going second, because obviously Pendulum can't play when you've been U-linked. And it's also quite good against random rogues, like against Burning the Best, especially the Tom Rose list that plays like Nat Beast. Nat Beast, as you can imagine, is pretty big. You do have the 2 purple poison, but that's not always enough. So having like the 3 Kaijus and then 2 of these to deal with like a Burning Beast deck that makes Nat Beast is pretty like comfortable to have in your side deck. And the very last side deck, of course, Cowboy. Time rules suck, so it's not. You just have to make the best of what you can do sometimes. I always side it in game 2 and 3. There's an easy side out. It's either Dweller if you're playing against non-Goki decks or non-BA decks, and then the Karen Gorgon if you're playing against the BA or the Goki decks, just so you have that extra 800 damage that you can do. There was actually a game in Swiss where I didn't actually side it in for game 2. My opponent was on 800 life points after attacking him. And I didn't have this in my extra deck, so I could have killed with Cowboy. I still won the game, but you know, it would have been a lot more star points if I did it with the Cowboy. So yeah, that's it for the deck.
Brilliant. And so, do you have any shout-outs you'd like to give?
Yeah, so quite a few shout-outs. So firstly, shout-outs to the Disciples. I'm not wearing the t-shirt at the moment. You know, I always am. So we're quite a new team. We just stepped onto the market. We did extremely well at Nationals. 8 out of 12 of us top, which is insane, especially for the first event as a team. Big shout-outs to Marcus Patel, because he pretty much made this list initially by himself. We've both been playing Pendulum for quite a while now. We're both super comfortable for the deck. So he made the initial list and I jumped in at the end and gave a little bit of help, but big shout-outs to him. And then, so shout-outs to Mike from the Brotherhood for helping form the team. And then again, shout-outs to Jamie for making the logo. It's pretty cool. And then obviously shout-outs to Connor the cameraman and Jordan the staple free of.
Staple free of. He's going to be at every deck profile. You have to play him at free. He's a staple, you know.
So yeah, big shout-outs to the whole team, everyone who came. It was a sick event. I wish more of us could have topped, but next year, hopefully that will happen.
Thank you guys for watching, and we'll hope to see you guys again soon.